Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rust Run. Today, we are diving into a fundamental concept called loops. We will explore all of Rust's powerful and safe ways to repeat code, including loop, while, and the versatile for loop. Let's get started. First things first, let's create a new Rust project. I'll call it Rust_loops. Okay, I've got the project open. Let's clear out the default hello world code and start with the most basic loop Rust offers, which is simply called loop. The loop keyword does exactly what it sounds like. It runs the code inside the curly braces again and again without stopping. If we run this, you will see it keeps running non-stop. To stop this, we can press Ctrl+C. But having a program run forever isn't usually what we want. We need a way to break out of the loop. Rust gives us the break keyword for that. Let's modify this to stop after a certain point. Here, we're creating a counter. Inside the loop, we increment it by 1. When the counter hits 10, we break the loop and pass out the value of counter multiplied by 2. This value gets assigned to our result variable. Let's run it. And there we go. We combined a couple of new techniques here. First, we broke out of the loop using the break keyword. Second, we returned the value from the loop and immediately stored it in a variable. Pretty cool, right? This pattern of looping until a condition is met is very common. So common, in fact, that Rust has a dedicated loop for it, the while loop. A while loop runs as long as its condition is true. In this case, it will keep running as long as our number variable is not equal to 0. Each time true, we print the number. Then on the next line, subtract 1 from it. Step by step, the loop counts down until we reach 0. When that happens, we print liftoff. Let's run our program with cargo run. 3, 2, 1, liftoff. It works perfectly. The while loop makes our countdown simple and clear, much cleaner than using a loop with extra if checks. Now, let's talk about the most common and, I'd say, the most beloved loop in Rust, the for loop. It's fantastic for iterating over collections like an array. See how clean that is. The for loop takes each element from our array A and runs the code block for it. The best part is how safe this approach is. You never risk going out of bounds the way you might with a manual index. And you can see it prints every single value in the array. If we added more elements to the array, we wouldn't need to change the loop at all. You can also use a for loop for our countdown example. Most Rust developers, or Rustaceans as they're called, prefer this approach. We use a for loop with a range. The range 1.4 gives the numbers 1 to 3, and the rev reverses them. So we loop through 3, 2, and 1. Much nicer and more expressive, right? Each number is printed. And when the loop finishes, we get liftoff. That gives us the exact same countdown. Awesome. Sometimes we need to control which loop we break out of when working with nested loops. Rust lets us do this with loop labels. The nice part is that this technique works with any type of loop, whether it is for, while, or the plain loop. In this example, we will use it with loop so you can see it in action. We start with the counter set to 0. Here, we are creating the label for our outer loop. The label is named counting up, and it begins with a single quote. Inside the loop, the first thing we do is print the current count. Now we create a variable called remaining that starts at 10. And now we'll start our inner loop nested right inside the first one. Again, we'll print the remaining value just so we can track its progress as it counts down. Our first check is simple. If remaining gets down to 9, we'll hit this break. Now, notice this break is plain, it has no label. That means it only applies to the loop it's inside of. But here's the magic. We'll add another check. If our outer count variable hits 2, we call break again, but this time we use our label counting up. This is the key line. It tells Rust to completely stop the loop we named counting up, no matter how deeply nested we are. If neither of those if conditions are met, we just subtract 1 from remaining and let the inner loop continue on. Once the inner loop is done for the cycle, we'll come back out here and increment our main count by 1. And finally, after our labeled break has kicked us completely out of the outer loop, this last line will run, printing the final value of count. Alright, let's run it. This code has 2 nested loops. The outer loop is labeled counting up, and inside it we have a regular unlabeled loop. There are 2 types of breaks here. A regular break exits only the inner loop. A labeled break with counting up exits the outer loop, no matter where it is called from inside. Here is what happens step by step. The inner loop always breaks when remaining equals 9. The outer loop then increases count and repeats. When count reaches 2, the labeled break ends the outer loop completely. The program runs with count equal to 0, 1, and 2. Each time the inner loop prints the remaining values before breaking. On the third round, when count is 2, the labeled break ends everything and the program prints end count equals 2. The key idea is that labeled breaks give you precise control over nested loops. If you are still here, congratulations, you have mastered loops in Rust. Smash the like button and subscribe to Rust Run for the next chapter. See you in the next video.